Welcome to this lesson. Andre and our staff have combed through our best lectures, speeches, and presentations to bring you today's principle. As you watch these lessons, keep in mind how you might best apply the morals, wisdom, and principles in your ordinary daily activities. We know that what we practice and support with intention, we can improve on. Leadership and diversity advocacy requires that we practice both mentally and in the demonstration of our values. Take this time to reflect on your behaviors, build on your strengths, and minimize your areas of weakness. Remember, we look forward to seeing who you become. Andre and our team at AM Horizons will start you on this journey now.
But Egypt, according to Egyptians, is in Egypt. It is not in Africa. Right? So particularly in Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, there are lots of skirmishes and opportunities to solve problems between African Americans and Liberians, because Liberians consider themselves Liberians. And so the black construct is typically secondary to what America tries to label folks. And Somali children and African American children make a clear distinction between the two. Even though cultures you need one? Even though cultures are starting to mirror each other. So there are some distinctions. All right. Any other stupid questions that someone? Because that's what she said. It's a stupid question, so I just addressed it like that. No. Anything else? Okay. No. There are no stupid questions. I was just mirroring back to her what she said. One of the things I want to be mindful of is this concept of Adlerian theory versus Freudian theory, right? So one of the things that's interesting about Freud, what was Freud constantly trying to get people to do? What was his version of therapy? Psychoanalytical. To do what, though? So look at what part of the psycho. Right? So he was trying to get people to get to the root, and typically he believed that root was in their past. Right? So Freud spent a lot of time dealing with the past. So what happened to you when ... and how do we talk about that, and how do you feel about that, and blah, 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 blah. All this talking about the past. Now, the thing that makes Adler a little bit different is that Adler says, okay, this is where we are. Now, what are you going to do about it? Now, all this stuff in the past is good to know, but what's more important is how do we move forward, given wherever you are. So what are you going to do about it? When we start talking about multicultural counseling, that becomes an important methodology for helping us move forward. Okay? And so Adler is about forward movement. Freud was really about, let's deal with this past thing so we can uncover the roots and blah, 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 blah. And we'll do all these sessions. And then we can start moving forward once we have a handle on that. But Adler said, you know what, we're going to cut this short. Let's get to it. Right? And we'll dig up all this stuff in the past as we move forward. We will unwind it. We'll do all that stuff. But we have to get some forward movement. So when we talk about this thing that we want to call multicultural counseling, what we have to recognize is that there are two things that are clues for us. That first of all of the things that we see, the whats, are artifacts. Right? So we did that cultural model last time with the iceberg, and there are the things we could see and the things we couldn't see, and that the things that we see are what I will simply call what's. They are the artifacts of stuff. But what purposes do artifacts serve? So what do symbols serve? What is the value of an artifact? Why do I wear the clothes or eat the food or blah blah blah? What purpose? What function does it serve? What's that? It symbolizes who you are. Meaning. I am who I am. Artifacts or the what are a direct function of values. Okay, so tell me.
Well, I feel like 5 people could have the same symbol or the same outward look or the same whatever, and it could mean different things. It doesn't necessarily mean that they all have that same value or that same belief or come from the same economic background or whatever. So I'm kind of...
And I didn't say that.
Okay.
But it has a value. So I might. So here's an interesting thing. So I'm in Egypt. There's a guy wearing a shirt. He cannot read English. The shirt says, I have hot flashes. That's what the shirt says. In all right? He can't read English, but he has a purpose. Okay, and so this is the other part that where Freud and Adler kind of differ. What Freud says is that everything has a function. And so every artifact that I have typically serves a function, and it is to demonstrate my values. All the loner kids had very similar values. They expressed their lonership differently, particularly when they were hanging together. It was a joke about loner kids hanging together, right? So our artifacts are directly in relationship with our values. If we're not clear about what our values are, then that's kind of where we get to those stereotypes, right? So this is how this group of people is supposed to act. I don't know why, but I'm going to act like that because I'm not clear about what the values are. Does that help, Amanda, or no? You can still disagree. It didn't help. Okay. So because I want to be clear about your opposition to what I'm offering. So tell me one more time.
I feel like you're asking us to stereotype based on what we see and make an assumption about the person. And I'm saying, if that's what you're saying, I feel like that's not true. I'm confused.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, I don't know that I'm saying that. What I'm saying is that all artifacts, everything that we see has a function. It has a purpose. And that purpose is to fulfill, in terms of human relationships, a value.
What would be an example?
Okay, but you're specifically being very generic.
Yes.
And my interpretation is very specific.
So give me exactly what your interpretation is, the specificity that you're operating in. So,
but you're not implying how I'm interpreting it. That's not how you're seeing it.
Okay, so graffiti. Everyone's seen graffiti, right? That is an expression of the quote-unquote hip-hop culture. That's an expression, right? So graffiti artists don't just randomly do that stuff. It's a part of a demonstration of their values. I'm trying to think of another way to... Go ahead.
Out of curiosity, are you saying, so what you're saying is like, the clothes we wear might be an artifact of our, values, but we're not assuming that because I wear this is my value. We have to find out what the value stands for individually. Is that?
Yes.
If that's what he's trying to say, I get it.
Is that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No. This is important I relate to you what I'm trying to say.
She's taking it as that you're saying everybody who wears a ponytail believes this value because they have a ponytail.
But I am saying they have a ponytail because
They
of
have
the value that they hold.
But we don't know what the value is.
But we don't know necessarily what the value is. But there is a value attached to wearing a ponytail.
Yeah.
To that person.
To that person.
But
And I got-
because not all ponytails mean the same thing.
Right, and that's
Correct.
what I thought he was saying, is that all ponytails mean the same thing, and I was getting confused.
Yeah, no. But I am saying that a ponytail has a meaning.
Right.
I'm not necessarily saying it's all the same meaning.
Right.
Right? Woo, I'm glad we got over that. That was good, Amanda. Thank you. No. That's good. We need to get that level of clarity, right? Because what typically happens, so here's a funny thing, right? Who all has a Mac? Anyone Apple user, right? Now, the interesting thing about Apple users, if Apple put its logo on a rock and said, we're going to sell this rock for $499. What do Apple people do? They buy the rock. Why? Because they trust Apple. So our and that was an exaggeration. I'm not saying that they really would, but they trust Apple. And so, are there other artifacts? Are there other computer makers out there? Name some. Name some computer makers. Microsoft. What's that? Toshiba. Hewlett Packard, Dell, right? Acer. Are apples inexpensive or expensive? They are expensive, right? They have a loyal following, right? That's what I meant by buying the rock. I'm just saying they have a loyal following, right? Does Sony or Dell or Acer, do they have that same loyalty from their customers? No, probably not, right? So when you buy an Apple, what are you actually buying? Because there are other people who have computers that sell computers too, but what are you buying when you buy an Apple? You're buying the experience. You are buying the value of that computer, right? I mean, it's funny too, because Apple owners, they walk around showing the apple. They don't put it in the case. They will walk around, boom, and they'll flip that sucker open at times when we don't even need a computer. They just want to show that they can, right? Because for Apple, the why, people buy that is much more important than the what. Because they made some crazy stuff and people still bought it because they wanted to be a part of. I mean, the iPad Nano has had like 14 different things, and every week they're coming out with a new iPhone. iPhone SC, iPhone GWI, 2011. They got more iPhones than they got Jordans. Jordans, they come out a lot. So the artifacts. The what is a function of why. So artifacts are a function of the values. And so when you see people's artifacts, what I'm not saying is that you make an assumption about what that artifact means, but you ask questions about what that value is, right? So why is that important to you? Why do you blah 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 blah? So you can get to that. The methods are the how, and different people will connect these artifacts and these values in different ways. And so this becomes the part where we can talk about people's behavior. So how do you get to your values? So you have these artifacts. So here's a good example, right? So you're sagging your pants. That's an artifact. But you want to be a CEO of a major corporation. We got to do something, because how do you balance those things? How do you make those things work? You don't. You have to you got to figure it out, right? There were some other things I wanted to talk about. These were some of the things that were in the handout that that Carol sent you in terms of assessment, looking at age and generation when you're having conversations with clients, looking at their ethnic or racial identity and how that impacts their values, their artifacts, or their methods. Sexual orientation, how does that impact or how does that play in this diagram? Their gender expression in terms of either binary or being pluralistic in their spectrum of behaviors. Does anyone know what I mean when I say gender binary? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, well, we have a client right now. I work at Kind Institute, and they do not want to be referred to as he or she. It's they, them, or there. They don't want to have to choose between the gender binary of male or female. They exhibit both traits, but just they don't feel like they should have to choose or go towards one or another.
Okay.
He gave a whole presentation, or they gave a whole presentation on it.
Okay.
Question, just for you and regards to that, is it their choice that they don't want to be associated with one gender or another, or is it because they don't know what gender they want to be at that time?
They went through their whole experience and they neither fit in as being
Either or.
predominantly female or predominantly male.
Got it. Okay, thanks for clarifying. I was curious. That was interesting.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so gender binary is male or female, like 1 and 0, right? Binary numbers. But there's actually a spectrum of gender identity. Just like there's a spectrum of sexuality, right? So you can be masculine or feminine or anywhere on that spectrum. And I've been accused, some guys say you're not masculine enough. Other guys are like, you're too masculine, so there's a spectrum of human behavior. And that's one of the things we also really have to remember is that human behavior is not a concrete thing, but it is a range of behaviors. And anywhere along this continuum, things can happen to change people's perception of themselves or perception of the world, which is also important for us to realize. Right? So those were things. I also put some other things like in terms of when we start working across cultures that where immigrants or refugees are concerned. And I have to make a clear delineation between being an immigrant and a refugee. Right? Does anyone know the difference between the two? Mm-hmm. Carrie?
Well, an immigrant, usually it's your choice. Mm-hmm. Refugee, you really don't have, you're running from, war, there could be tons of reasons, but you have to leave your country.
Right. And typically when one has been a refugee, when you're leaving because of war or because of some kind of danger in your country, you do spend some time in a camp. And those camps are extremely important because there's all sorts of re-education that starts to happen in that camp that influences your next move. Right? So I know of a school district that had a lot of difficulties because as some refugees were coming into their school, they were having a lot of toilets that were being destroyed. And they couldn't figure out why they kept losing these toilets. And what they figured out was that in the refugee camps, people did not sit on the toilet. You would stand on the toilet and squat. And so there had to be a re-education process about how you use the toilets in the United States versus how you use it in the camps and so forth and so on. And so the needs of refugees are typically much deeper than those of just immigrants who have come here on their own. And there's another section of immigrants that we also have to talk about, which are those folks who came as undocumented folks, who may have similar traits to refugees because of how they came into the country than those who immigrated here through a system. All right, so those are some important things to be mindful of. But when doing some cross-cultural communication, cross-cultural counseling, where people were born and the story around their birth becomes very important to recognize as a part of helping them to move forward in terms of looking at how that birth functions as a storytelling, as an underlying theme for their life, right? So even as a metaphor. Understanding how many generations of their family have been in the U.S. One of the things that we know is that first-generation families are typically pretty traditional, right? Second generation kind of holds on to some of those traditions. Third generation folks are typically not as traditional as their grandparents, but are pretty American. What we also know is by the time you get to the fourth and fifth generation, they want to be as conservative in their cultural beliefs as their grandparents, because now they're so separated from their original landmass or blah, blah, blah. Just think about your own family, right? There are certain family members that are like, you know what, I want to get that German language down. We've lost that, or my Irish heritage is really important to me. And typically that happens the further people get away from their original stories and their original lands. Also understanding family roles and family dynamics. Who makes decisions in the family? Being able to tease that out. These start to get into some of these values. Understanding people's language and their fluency in English and in their own language. One of the things that we found in the 10th Judicial Court District, which starts at Anoka County and kind of moves up north, was that we said we will take all of our court documents and we'll translate them into the languages that people speak. The problem with that is what?
Dialect.
I would say it doesn't technically translate.
Some people can't read in their own language.
Yeah, the Hmong, I mean, it wasn't even a written language until when, was it the 60s or 40s? I can't remember, but the Hmong language wasn't even written.
Right? So some people aren't even fluent in their own language to be able to read, because education wasn't a big part of it. Survival was a big part of their stuff. So we have to be cognizant of that when we're interacting with folks. Also, education level. What is education? For some folks, education meant learning how to do a thing and not a process that you sat through to learn something that you would never use, right? So education. And also talking about push and pull factors that brought people to particularly the United States, or brought them specifically to sit in front of us. So what brought you here? What pushed you here? What pulled you here? Why are you here? How do we work around that? Another thing that's important, and so even when we talk about these values and these artifacts, there are things that I will show you in terms of who I am. I'm tough. I'm blah, 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 blah. This is my tough guys. Rawr, right? So that's what I'll show you. But then there's the real me, which says I'm vulnerable. But I'm not going to show that. There's only such a small part of that I'm going to show the world. And so part of our job is to help people explore their inferiority. So white helpers. So what is the job of a white helper? To help. That's it, right? Not to save, not to do anything else, but give people the resources that they need to help themselves. Scarlett, question.
Yeah. What is it? I got what you said about, like, there's only a little bit of you that you show, but what does it say underneath that me and then?
It says me and then me I know. So the me I know. So let me put a comma there.
Got it.
So there's the me I know, and then there's what I show you.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. So in the movie now, I'm a Cosby Knight. I'm a Cosby Knight. I like Bill Cosby. I think Bill Cosby is right. I don't know if you've heard any of those conversations. People are like, well, he's so hard and he's so... I think Cosby is right. Anybody that is willing to help me, I'll take it. Black, white, or other, I will take the help, right? So it's important that white helpers know that their job is to help people do their own work, not do it for them, and not do it out of guilt or shame or embarrassment, but to know that they can be of assistance. All right? And knowing that you can be an assistance is great, but sometimes you have to ask how you can help. You know you can help. I have some resources, but how can I help? Right? And so that's where the cultural competence stuff comes in. Because white helpers who don't get this, they say, you know what, I know exactly what your problem is. We're going to go ahead and do this. Dr. Phil is so funny because he is notorious for doing that, right? But he's so funny because he's funnier than 2 ticks on a coon dog's back, chasing a raccoon up a tree backwards. I can't do his, that's not funny. So white helpers need to know that they can help, but they need to ask, how can I help? One of the things that is also important is this concept of yes and. Yes and. Which is more painful? Stubbing your toe or cutting off your finger?
I don't know.
Why don't you know, Amanda?
I never cut my finger.
You've never cut your finger off? Me neither. Right? So, Amanda, if you prick your finger and Iris, you scraped your elbow, which of you is going to have more pain? Pain is pain, right? So I had a young man come before me, and he spoke with a southern accent, which also meant he spoke a little slower. And he came to me for counseling because he said, Andre, I can't get a job. I don't know what's going on. I'm from the South. I got the Southern drawl, and I think I know what it is. I think that is racism. That people are racist towards me because I have a Southern drawl. And guess what I said to him? Yes. That's the first thing I said. Your experience is real. I can't take your experience away from you. Now, do I personally think that's what it is? No, I don't think that's what it is. But for me to try to convince him of something different is going to take away from time for us moving forward. So I say, yes. And is there anything else that it could be? Right? So as practitioners, we have to take their pain, we have to take what their problem is seriously. It might not be what we think it is, it might not be our problem, but we have to take what they have to say seriously and say, yes, and what are we going to do about it? And so I said that. I was like, yeah, it might be racism. So now that we know what it is, what are we going to do? Well, I think I can blah, 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 blah. I can do this better, or I can get this certificate, or I can go to this place. Okay, now we have a plan. So we know what it is, so now we know how we can move forward. Is this stuff people have heard before? Is this... Okay, because I don't want to rehash stuff that either Carol's talked about or other professors talked about. Okay, it was different. Okay, cool. And the other part of our job is to make sure that people have hope, but they have to have realistic hope, right? So a lot of times kids will say, and I think I mentioned this last week, kids will be, I'm going to be a rapper. Okay, how many poems have you written? Right? So show me your poem. Okay, you're going to be a rapper. Great. What books have you read? Because I will guarantee you that Jay-Z has a whole library of books that he's read. That he's got notebooks and notebooks of poems. That somebody at some point corrected his grammar and looked at his poetry. Right? So we have to let them set realistic goals. Now, what I will also say is not our job to stifle someone's stuff. If they say, this is what I want to do, and they're showing that they have an aptitude for it, they're working towards it. The worst thing we can tell folks is, you can be anything you want to be, because that's a lie. You can be anything that you're willing to work for. It's the truth. Right? So anything you're willing to work for. And so with that hope, people will say, well, this is where I am, or this is how I am. And we go back to this yes and can it be different? I'm in this bad relationship. She's treating me like this. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. So it is like this, but could it be different? Yes, it could be different. Right? So there's that. We just talked about this concept of pain is pain. How do I know if someone has learned something? What is the demonstration of learning? Action. A change in behavior. I see their movement change. Right? I don't hear what they're saying, but I see what they're doing that is actually changing. So I know that learning is happening when I see a change in behavior. Yes?
Is it fair to say that learning can either be negative or positive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Just curious.
Because you can have negative and positive behaviors. But I would say, but what makes, and this is a trick. This is a trick question. But what makes a behavior positive or negative? Someone's perception. Interpretation. You guys are close. What is it?
Context?
The goal, right? If I'm moving towards my goal, then it's positive, it's good. Even if I have a twisted, messed up goal. Right? So the goal makes a behavior good or bad. But we got to know what the goal is. Right? No, I'm not going there. Okay. So learning is a change of behavior. One of the things that we also have to recognize, and I don't remember if I talked about this last Monday or not, is this idea of code switching. Did I talk about that last week? Okay. So code switching is very, very, very important, right? So we said that artifacts demonstrate value. So people act the way that they do for a reason, right? Did anyone see the movie Stand and Deliver? It's a pretty old movie by now. Stand and Deliver. Okay. So Lou Diamond Phillips plays this. Who's the guy from Battlestar Galactica? The captain. Oh, come on. Somebody watched Battlestar Galactica, didn't they? No?
Not this crowd.
I'm the nerd, right? His name will come back to me. He had very bad acne. Hispanic.
I know Lou Diamond Phillips.
No. But I am going to talk about Lou Diamond Phillips in just a second.
Was he the guy from Machete, whatever his name is?
No.
I'm just throwing out something I know has acne problem.
No. Okay, anyway, it'll come back to me. So Lou Diamond Phillips is this tough kid, and he's like, and he's doing really well in school. But he comes up to the teacher, he's like, yo, teach. I need another set of books, man. And he was like, dude, I just gave you a set of books. He was like, I know. Those are my books for James Elmos. So he comes up to his teacher, James Elmos, and says, man, I need another set of books. And he says, I just gave you a set of books. He's like, I know, man. Those are my home books. He said, I need some school books. He was like, I don't understand. He was like, man, I can't be caught carrying no books around. So he needed a set of books for home, and he needed a set of books for school, right? So what he was learning was how to code switch. Because in the neighborhood, you got to be a certain way. You know what I'm saying? I got to have a certain kind of swag. Around my friends, I have to be a certain kind of way. And too often, as practitioners, what we've said to particularly young people, and what we've said to people, adults more specifically, is that we've said that your culture is not good enough. So get rid of that and take on this other thing. When what's more helpful is to say, in this context, this is how you act. In this context, you have to switch your code. Right? And the people who are better able to switch their code in different contexts do a whole lot better than people who say, I'm keeping it real, man. I'm going to be me in every situation I'm in. And that's why you're just in one situation. Right? Mm-hmm. And that goes for other things. And I'm using the urban affect because that's my story. You know, I got to come from me. Right? So, but if you can take that principle and apply it in different ways, you'll start to get hit to a mystery. Right? So code switching is extremely important. And basically code switching is just saying that in this context, are you reaching your goal? Are you reaching your goal with that behavior? If not, we need to adjust something. Either adjust the goal or we need to adjust your behavior. Right? There's that. So how do you help drill down on a lot of this stuff? Right? I would say there's a pretty simple way to do that. And it comes from Bloom's taxonomy. Are you guys familiar with Bloom's taxonomy at all? Okay, I'll give you a handout on Bloom's taxonomy. And Bloom's taxonomy basically is an educational framework that tries to move people from simplistic thinking to more complex thinking. So it's a pyramid that talks about simplistic thinking to more sophisticated thinking at the top of the pyramid. And so a good way just to think about Bloom's taxonomy and really trying to get people to think about the function of their goals and the function of their behavior is to ask these series of questions. What, so what, and now what? Right? So what is going on? So why are you here with me today? What is it that you're hoping to get out of this session? What happened? Who, what, when, where, why? Just these basic kinds of questions around the particular situation that brought them to you, or the situations, the pattern of behaviors that have brought them to sit in front of you. The second is, so what does it mean that you're here? Right? So now that you've identified, what's going on, so what do we want to do about it? Right? So what are some questions that we ask, or what are some things that we could do to move forward from this particular thing? And then lastly, we ask the question, now what? So now that we've identified the kinds of things that we're going to do, how do we start measuring that? How do we set a plan? How do we set goals associated with what our next steps are? And then that relates back to our goals and movement. And what we're always trying to do is help people move forward, even if that means spitting in their soup, right? Causing them cognitive dissonance, engaging, helping them to pierce their false reality, right? So these questions are designed to do that. I did want to say just something about that I thought was really interesting, that Richard, not necessarily having those caring, committed adults in his life, not only went back to where he was at the beginning, but actually got worse. He regressed in terms of his social skills, his functionality, and blah, 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 where Montre and Devon advanced in their stuff. And as goofy and as funny or as cute or endearing as I thought that his preaching was, I think the community was more powerful for him than in terms of their modeling, even if that was not something that or it was something that I believed in myself, but for him and his community, that was an empowering piece. And so as practitioners, I might see some things that don't make sense to me, I don't necessarily understand or believe in, but if I understand the principle that having a ritual is better than not having one at all. I can recall a time when I was very much anti-religion. Right? I was very much a humanist, and I thought that the only, we could save ourselves through knowledge and information. And my mentor, Leon Sharp, cautioned me because I was going to start telling people the truth. There is no ... and you don't have to, follow that, whatever. And he said, whoa, you're about to make a big mistake, son. He said, one of the biggest mistakes you can make in life is to take away something and not have something to replace it with. And so if you take someone's hope, or you take someone's religion, or you take their tradition, and you don't have something to replace it with, you are committing a grievous harm in the universe. Because even the universe knows that if there's a hole, it will fill it with something.
So that's what happened to Richard.
His hope got taken away. His hope got opened up. He saw possibility. And this is the worst thing that can happen to people. That you showed them the possibility of being better than they could, and they can never reach it. That's where despair comes in, right? You can be anything you want to be. Don't tell me that. If I don't have the skills or the ability to do it. And many of you probably the reason that I'm Christian and religious and whatnot. But there's a story in the Bible that talks about hell, and there's a guy who's thirsty, and he can see a glass of water. He can't get to it. That's hell, right? That's hell. Being able to see it and know that it's there, but not ever being able to get access to it, and you need it and you want it. It's supposed to belong to you, but you can't get it. That is hell. Right? And so part of our job is to help people not find themselves in hell, to give them real steps to start making that stuff a reality, whatever that stuff is. And to reorganize their thoughts when they're way too out there. Yes,
I've actually had someone say that to me, that mental illness is like being in hell. She recognized what was going on in herself, and she didn't know how to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, questions, comments? If you disagree, please say something so we can talk about it, because that's more valuable.
Excuse me, code switching, I'm confused with that. So, is code switching bad?
No, code switching is good.
But that example you gave of that person being himself or his culture, it worked for that part, but didn't work for that, so we asked him to change.
Dependent on context.
Pardon me?
Dependent on context, so...
Right, but she's not being who he really
He wants
is.
to learn. He just knows that he can't show that he's learning in his environment.
But if my code, I'm being asked to change this code that is me, right, in order to fit into this different thing, that doesn't fit me. I must be missing something.
Nope, you're not missing anything.
Okay.
Because that's the quandary, right?
Well, that's what I guess I have a quandary. That doesn't seem positive to ask someone to do that or expect someone to do that.
And you're right.
Okay.
I'd like to add something.
Go ahead,
We
Ann.
act certain ways around certain people, but we still have the same goal. So that's maybe really what it is. Like we're still
But to what
achieving-
extreme? I guess my point would be, I don't like to change who I am around certain people. It doesn't feel good if I can't be who I want to be or who I am.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be extreme.
But no, let's go there. Because that's true, right? So you don't like having to change,
Right.
but your boss says, this is how we act, this is what we look like.
Sure.
If you, as close as you can get to that, you get the reward. What do you do?
But I don't feel good about it.
I didn't ask you if you felt good about it.
I guess that's my point. If I don't feel good about it, I have learned in my life, I walk away from it. I'm wearing sandals right now. If you told me I had to wear shoes, I'd probably go somewhere else.
Okay, so Don, here is the clincher that is called white privilege and entitlement.
I'm exhibiting that? By
Yes.
saying that?
Because you can choose. If I said you have to wear shoes, you
Right.
can choose
Yeah.
to go somewhere else, to go to school, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Military, right? So there's this big hoopla now about African American women's hair. So the military says your hair has to be like this. Well, African American women's hair is so different. So to say that they all have to fit into this is unfair. But guess what? Those who want to continue to be a part of the military do it even though it doesn't feel good. And maybe the military is not a good sense of that. But another way.
Actually, it's quite right.
Okay, all right.
But is this like acculturation and the complexity that goes with fitting into the society versus, is that what we're talking about?
So I would say acculturation says that I am going to stop being who I am so that I can fit into the culture. When I talk about code switching, what I'm saying is, in this context, I got to talk and I have to be like this to help me reach my goals. I'm still me, but I have to play this role here. And when I come over to this thing, I got to play the role here. I'm still me. But as much as I can switch those roles, the more successful I will be. It's just like having tools in your toolbox, right? The more tools you have, the more sophisticated projects you can work on. The fewer tools you have, the less sophisticated the projects are that you can work on. And it doesn't necessarily feel good.
So there must be a point where you do have to walk away, regardless of
There are
what
some things.
privilege or not.
There are some things that you will have to walk away from because A, you can't even get the tools to work on the project. Secondly, you figure out that they're not going to hire you for the job anyway. They're not going to add you to the project. Let me give one more example of that. So, it just left. But I hope you start to get it, right? So some stuff, you're right, it doesn't feel good. This is what I was going to say. There have been opportunities that I have missed out on because I have crazy hair.
What? Not you.
Yes.
Not you.
Nobody wrote me a letter and said, we're not hiring you because you have crazy hair. Right? So I don't ever really know that, but I can guesstimate that I have missed out on opportunities because of my crazy hair. But guess what? I don't care. So if I miss out on those are opportunities I'm supposed to have in the first place. Because I don't want to work with those people who don't want to work with me. So there's that. Yes, Jennifer.
But I guess the example that you were, it doesn't quite fit right. I'm trying to, I guess, in my head, come with authenticity. Like, as an individual's authenticity to who they are at their core, and with code switching and being able to be this way in this environment, this way in this environment. Wouldn't that drive a person nuts? With your ability to code switch, wouldn't that be like, where am I, or who am I, or?
As an African American, that's my experience. Right? Because I can't be too black. At the same time, I can't be too white. I can't be too, I can't talk too urban. I can't be too blah, 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 blah. So, but it's not just me, right? Gay people can't be too gay. They can't fake to be too straight. They can't be blah, blah, blah. I'm a woman. A woman can't be too butch. Because then she becomes the B word, right? A woman can't be too feminine because then she's weak. Blah, blah, blah. So we're all doing this crazy dance that's making us...
That's why we're neurotic.
That's exactly why we're neurotic. And that is the basis of neuroticism. But what I'm offering is that we don't teach particularly young people about this code switching thing. They need to know about it as a tool that they can add to their toolbox. Because otherwise they feel crazy. because I don't fit in anywhere. I don't blah, blah, blah. Whoa. Look, you don't have to change who you are, but you may want to you might want to understand the environment that you're in. Yes?
So I see this applying specifically with Adler's phrase, act as if. And I think that is positive. It can be positive in the right setting and in the right context. And I think that it works, it's very compatible with it. It's almost the same, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say so. Yes, Judy.
Well, I'm going to say, if you come to a kind of a basic acceptance of yourself, I think this is for all you who are younger. When you reach a certain point in your life, you kind of don't give a rip anymore what other people think, and you go, all right, this is who I am. And I think you do less of the switching.
Yeah. And you have to come to terms with who you are and what you're willing to try to fit into, right? Why is his name escaping me? Number 42. Jackie Robinson. Was he the most talented baseball player? No. Satchel Paige was light years in terms of skills and ability better than Robinson. But Satchel couldn't fit in to Major League Football. I mean, baseball, not football. Major League Baseball, right? He couldn't fit in with that stuff because somebody spit on Satchel Paige, he's liable to knock him out, right? Is that what Major League Baseball needed? No, they needed somebody like Jackie Robinson who could take a good spitting on and say, I'm still getting paid, and so I'm going home, right? Is everybody called to be Jackie Robinson? No. Right? Is everybody going to be like Satchel Paige? No. But there is a certain amount that we don't talk about this openly, so that folks know that this is a tool they can use to adapt to the world that they're living in. And you have to and it doesn't necessarily feel good, right? If, all the ways that I've had to fit into stuff hasn't always felt good. But here's another example. This is my personal experience. My grandfather's name was John. As a man, people will refer to my grandfather as George or Boy. In Tennessee. And guess what my grandfather said? Nothing. Why? His goal was to make sure that I was around. Had he said something, had he spoke up, had he blah, 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 I'm an independent person. I'm going to blah, 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 blah. All right. Right? So that's an extreme example of the opposite happening. I saw a couple of hands. Yes?
I just was going to add that I've done extensive work with the mandated clients, and in many cases, a few, I should say, maybe not many, but there were times with a highly functioning adult male that I had to say, and of course within the boundary levels, is that I understand what you're saying, but if you want to finish and get out of here, this behavior, you've got to stop it, and at least for the class, in order to finish it, so that he would see the parole officer, and the papers would all be okay, and he could get out and move on. But I said, just for 3 hours, once a week, you got to come in here and behave yourself and act as if you are actually
interested in getting out.
And wanting to
right.
move on.
But I'm going to be me. I'm going to just be myself. Don't nobody tell me what to do. Okay, you stay right in your situation. My niece is driving me crazy. She's 20. She's going to be a junior at some point in college. Right? She had the nerve to tell me, she said, Uncle Andre, I want to make my own decisions. I want to do this on my own. I want to prove this on my own. I said, young lady, nobody who's ever been successful has done anything on their own. Thomas Edison had helpers, right? Henry Ford had other people standing around helping him do all the stuff that he did. I said, girl, you better take this help. And she's stuck on this rugged individualism stuff. I'm like, Lord have mercy. Right? So there's all that stuff. I want to get back to the course. Thank you so much for indulging me in all this stuff. The course actually took a little bit different shift than I was planning because the video kind of took me somewhere else. But obviously, I covered all these notes. I do want to collect folks' papers, and then we need to have a sign up for Saturday. If I'm not mistaken, we've been working on projects that will be presented on Saturday. I will tell you that I think an hour is a bit excessive. So if you don't take an hour, that will be okay. Yes?
She changed it to 15 minutes a person, but we never adjusted the syllabus. Just
Okay. Well, thank you.
What paper tonight? Is that the case assessment that we were supposed to?
Yes.
Okay.
So folks did it. Folks didn't do it. And it's all good. Right? So I'm taking the papers that people did do.
Can we
so
really show you what we've got? We have.
if you have something, submit that. Put your name on it, and a smiley face. So I feel good when I look at it. So I will take that. Yep, you gave me yours.
Well, no, the problem was that a lot of the
Like I said, I have a presentation Saturday and next Monday.
Yeah.
I think that was the original.
That was the original plan.
Saturday is, or yeah, it's the original.
So is it just going to be Saturday now?
It will be Saturday and Monday. However, if we can get through most of them on Saturday.
Can you do like a list of who's going first?
I was going to have you sign up for that. I don't assign that stuff. I do have to say you guys are an excellent class and you are so flexible. You are so flexible, so thank you. I'm going to write it on the board. So right before we get ready to go, we'll sign up. Let me see. Oh! I'm sure that Carol did not pass this out.
Are you sure?
No.
So some of us have groups of two and some I think have four.
And some have groups of one.
What is the time that you're looking for?
So, if I'm not mistaken, people said 15 minutes is what she said.
Per person? Or per group?
Can we discuss this as a group?
So let's discuss this as a group and be on the same page because
everybody, unfortunately, has not. Well, it's not that no one's been met. It's just everybody's under a different impression because she's changed what she said. She's changed what she wrote in her assignment.
Okay, so let's do this.
So let's just.
This is where we are.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to go.
Exactly.
Right?
So can we
So,
do that and just say, okay, can we all just get on the same page?
so, what is the pleasure of the group? Do you want 15 minutes per person or group?
Not per group.
No, not per group.
That's not enough time to cover what you
gotta
gave us to
cover.
Okay,
cover.
so 15 minutes a person. So each group will have 45 minutes.
Well, no, we have 5 people, so.
We have 5.
That's what I'm saying. So,
Do we have to have a time limit on it? Can it be,
well, we kind of have to because we only have so much
well,
time.
can we cap it at like no longer than
An hour.
30 minutes or 45 minutes?
No longer than an hour.
No longer than.
Okay, so help me understand what the pre.
See what we have to do.
I want you to tell me what you have to do, Mickey.
Well, she has like 6 things that she wants us to talk about in these presentations. That's what the outline she gave us.
Okay.
Okay, but here's the thing. This is our professor now, so I feel like you should say what you want to
Yep, and I certainly would like to do that. I'd like to honor the work that has come before.
We're at square one.
Yeah.
It's not like we have our presentation ready. I pretty much do.
So, no, because there are people who have gone with the syllabus and have moved forward, and I want to honor that. So, so Mickey, where are you?
Our groups read like extra journal articles. That's all we've done.
Okay.
Because that's all we really get time to do.
Okay. Cool. Amanda, can I ask where you are in your presentation? Are you ready? You and your group?
Ready?
We are
No.
not ready.
We have kind of tried to figure out what it is that she wants. Points E and F are, she's just looking for a lot of references. Like she wanted us to email to her, to the class, or to have an electronic handout for everyone else of all the references that we were doing.
So,
So in other words, no.
no references. You don't have to email. Don't email me anything. I don't want no emails from none of y'all.
We love you too.
I love you too. What
Because she wanted like more than 15 resources for our specific topic.
Yeah. What I want you to do is this is the most important thing, and this is tough for people to kind of get around because we're so used to. I want you to find the stuff that is useful for you, right? So the idea behind finding the 15 resources is so that you can have access to tools that will be helpful, right? So it's not so much turning in stuff, emailing me those 15 resources. That's not the activity. The real activity is going out and being able to find 15 resources and knowing about it, blah, blah, blah. So I will encourage you to do that. If we can cap, if we can cap our presentations to about 25 minutes at the max, do the best you can to meet those things.
Like our group is 5 people.
That's all right, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We don't need to go in depth like we're going to go in depth. We'll curtail it. We'll give them the nuggets they need to know. We'll figure
How
it
does
out.
that feel, Joan?
Just make a handout.
We got it.
Because otherwise, your group of 5 people, if I gave each of you,
The
15 minutes, 10 minutes, then it is almost as if you have individual projects as opposed to a group project.
We just had a course, like Amanda, Stephanie and I, where we sat all Saturday and listened to presentations all day, and it was a lot. Oh, this is
And I like doing that, and I think that's important. But I don't want us to. I love TED Talks.
Yes.
Check it out. If you haven't checked it out, please check it out. You got 15 minutes to give your best presentation.
To get your point across.
And it used to be 7 minutes. I don't know why they keep extending it, right? You got 15 minutes. If you can't do it in 15 minutes.
Well, who's to say that you can, as a group, can actually hold the class's attention for more than 15, 20 minutes?
You can. I do it all the time. Yeah, you just tell jokes. But here's my point. I want to honor what has come before, but I want to honor us as we move forward. And it sounds like people have not necessarily created their thing, so this is an opportunity to give me 20, 25. All right?
So as far as what you're looking for in the content of the presentation, it's just whatever we think is useful to us personally and professionally.
Yeah. Yep. I want to know what you have found that is useful, something you will use in your practice. Anything else is just academic gobbledygook.
Well, so she was asking us to do a PowerPoint. Don't need to do a PowerPoint if we choose not to, right?
I would say that we can do a PowerPoint.
Okay.
That's a universal tool.
And then she was asking to make sure handouts were given to everyone so that you have it.
What I would
That
suggest.
was what she was at, the PowerPoint, resources, whatever. But so we could make a copy of our PowerPoint, and that would suffice for you.
That would suffice for me. And actually, I would So the next time I do this course, we will have a Moodle attached to it so that you can email people the presentation so we're not wasting so much paper. Because that's, how many groups are there?
There's a lot.
6 or 7.
6 or 7 groups. So that's 6 or 7 groups doing 22 to 24. Yeah, I mean, the paper just is.
Well, what's nice is if we print out our PowerPoint, then we can actually take notes on said PowerPoint, which would be nice.
Yes.
So that should be our handout.
But Aaron, who does that? No, but have you ever been to one of those workshops and actually taken notes? It may be like 1 or 2 notes or whatever.
Yeah.
But they get.
Should the handout be
Yeah.
good, like any resources that we find?
Just for your tape when I doodle.
So let's do this. So create a PowerPoint, use it as your presentation. Resources that you have. Where she said email those, print those out. Yes.
PowerPoint, is it necessary? Because we were thinking of having clips intermittent, but not like a straightforward PowerPoint.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's the best way to use it. Oh, I will dock points for anybody who reads their PowerPoint. I'm taking 50% of your score if you read your PowerPoint. That's in the new
Know
syllabus.
your stuff. Know your stuff.
Right? So, and this is something we have to talk about as professionals. What is the use of PowerPoint? PowerPoint is to help you tell a story. I can read it for myself, but your job is to interpret what you have in your presentation for me, right? So, if you ever look at any of my PowerPoints, what you will see is lots of imagery. You'll see a few bullet points. You may see some other stuff because they're paying me to tell the story. That's it. So that's what I'm not trying to be judgmental. You can have your notes. Certainly have your own notes, but don't read off the PowerPoint what we can read ourselves. Is what I'm saying. Okay.
Can we move forward then one more syllabus topic?
Yes.
The final paper.
Yes.
You have an opportunity to look at those requirements. Is that going to change?
I have not, but it is not going to change. It is something that was started in the beginning. It doesn't make sense to change it now. Please move forward with that paper just as it is in the syllabus.
Okay.
Carrie, and then Aaron, and then Lisa.
She said that we could use a movie.
We just had to check with her for the final paper, so should we just check with you?
Yes. And so, yes, go ahead.
Oh, that's what I wanted to know. Like, I can use.
You've just been knighted to use a movie. All right, Aaron.
We also had, as part of our special project time, we were to accumulate 30 hours of work time outside of whatever else have you. Is that also to be continued?
Have you done it?
Well, not.
Then why are you asking me a question if it's something you ain't done? We got 2 more classes. You haven't done it. Why?
Well, I mean, it's a mental thought of, okay, I spent X amount of hours on my group.
I spent a certain amount of hours thinking about not doing what I was thinking of. No.
So we could 86 then.
86 or whatever.
No log. It was a 30-hour log.
It was a 30-hour log, so, okay.
No log. Joan, have you done the log?
Like a day and a half.
Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah. No, I have the syllabus. I was just asking if people have done the law, done their things. Okay. You did your 30 hours, Iris? All right. Good. What's that? So it's for after you graduate. Okay. Anything else? Yeah. Oh.
Well, and I talked to you about this earlier, and I think that you were one of them, Don. She had said that we could, instead of doing one of the articles or a movie, we could expound on what our presentation was going to be.
For the final paper.
For the final paper.
Yeah.
She pretty much gave us leeway with the paper and said,
Mine's done. It's got 15 pages. I'm not doing another.
Well, why are you asking me a question? I already did the paper. I ain't doing it again.
So I I just want to make it.
Right, no.
Lisa, this is Lisa saying this is how it is.
Right. I'm not going to change. Yes, Jen.
The paper that we received last week, is that going towards our grade or?
That is, I'll have to talk with Chris about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
So-
problem with that is that, and we've talked about it, is that she told the class APA doesn't matter,
Because
write the
it's a
paper,
position.
but then a lot of our papers were graded on that.
Yeah.
So like that's the only thing that's
Yeah.
wrong there.
At the
Calista?
same time, I don't have 100%, like, I don't know this, but when you were presenting last Monday, she was grading papers in the corner. So some people's grades may or may not be correct because of not being 100% last week for her.
Okay.
So, and I saw her grading papers, not to say they were ours, but
They could-
we did get our papers back the same night, so. And there's, yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm done.
Yeah, so just my 2 cents about the paper thing. I'm not a bad student,